All right, and welcome in everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you are listening to the Shumake Take. This is the 2024-2025 Divisional Round Recap, and man, guys, this was nuts. We had some really great games, some shocking games. The Divisional Round was just about everything that I hoped it would be. It was a great week of playoff football. But before we jump into it, we do have a little bit of housekeeping to do. We also have a little bit of news to get into as well. Little bit of news has broken over the course of the weekend that I want to talk about first and foremost. But a little bit before that, if you guys noticed, this is not episode number 38. I think I'm going to save episode 38 to a little bit after, once the season's over, and keep these videos strictly for this round of the playoffs preview, this round of the playoffs recap, and so on and so forth. So episode 38 will hit at some point. I don't know when, but as I'm talking to you, currently Google Docs is just, for my script, is just not opening for some reason. I have no idea why it's not opening, but we'll try and wing it as of right now. Okay, we'll just keep on going, I guess. We'll figure it out in a second. But other than that, if you noticed, there is no intro. I think I'm going, or outro, like the music, I think I'm going to cut that out, because something that I've noticed is when I don't put in the intro, the views are higher. So I'm going to see if that remains to be the case. And if that's the case, then that's the switch I will make. Unfortunately, I love my intro. I think it's really cool. And the music and stuff, it's awesome. But if that's what you guys do not want to see, if you guys don't want to, see that opening segment, that's fine. I get it. When I think about it, it does feel a little weird that I'm like, okay, here we go. Show's getting set up. I'm sitting down, ready to do my thing. And, it would make more sense if I was live. If I had enough subscribers to go live, it would make a lot more sense there. But for a video that everything's pre-recorded, yeah, it's a little weird. In the sports world, obviously, on broadcast, you can get away with that because it looks authentic. Here, it doesn't look as authentic because obviously it's not live. You can tell it's not live. So I'm just going to cut it out for now. We'll see what happens. I hope there's an avenue that I can bring it back one day, because it is really cool. I enjoyed using that intro a lot and listening to it. Probably got me hyped when editing the show, more specific, more for me. But if that's what if you guys want to see me just talk and just get right into the news and get right into the business, that's what you guys want to see, then that's what I'm going to do. My wish is y'all's command. I'm the one that sells a product. You guys are the ones that have to buy it. So hearing your feedback and seeing your feedback in my metrics and analytics is how I'm going to make the show better and improve. But getting into some news, as my Google Docs still isn't opening. It's opening right now, actually, as I make the change. The first big news is that offensive coordinator for the Lions, Ben Johnson, is set to become the head coach of the Chicago Bears. This was a move that people have been speculating for a little while now, and now it's come to fruition. Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and I think this is a fantastic move for Chicago, because you get a young offensive-minded head coach, one of the best play callers in the NFL. So you get that guy to work with your young quarterback, Caleb Williams, who's insanely talented. You pair him up with a young stud receiver in Rome Odunze. Keenan Allen, I don't know if he's going to come back. I think he's set to be a free agent, so we'll have to see about that. But at the same time, DJ Moore is still a really good receiver in his own right. So you have good, talented weapons around Caleb Williams here. I would like to see him to get another running back, get another receiver, obviously rebuild his offensive line, which was the big issue with the Chicago Bears this year. But Ben Johnson is very motivating and very encouraging, because this is what I wanted the move. This is the move I wanted the Bears to make. You get a young offensive head coach that's a great play caller to work with the young quarterback, give him the situation that he needs to be in to succeed. That's what the big thing here is for Chicago. And along with that, now he's apparently assembling a really good coaching staff. Apparently Dennis Allen, the former Saints head coach that got fired earlier this season, is set to be apparently the new defensive coordinator, which, if you guys remember from when Sean Payton was the head coach of the New Orleans Saints and Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator, he was pretty darn good. He did a pretty darn good job. And so this could be a good thing for the Chicago Bears defense. That is a good unit, but definitely was held back this year because of how bad the offense was, particularly the offensive line. being absolute dog. But along with that, just have to see what other moves he's going to make. Apparently, he's getting a lot of power within the organization early. I don't know how much power per se. Chicago Bears fans, if there's more news on that you guys know about, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it. But this is a great move. It's a really great move for the Chicago Bears. Exactly what I wanted them to do. And this is the best, probably the best candidate for Caleb Williams and for the potential of his development and long-term career success. So great move by Chicago. And we'll see how it works during the offseason and eventually when it works in 2025. But right now, just a move on its own as it's coming out. What a great move. This is exactly the move Chicago Bears needed to make at the head coaching spot. Next up, we got another big move. The Tennessee Titans hiring Chiefs Assistant General Manager Mike Borgonzi to be their new general manager. And still feel a little bit mixed about this because obviously the Titans had just fired GM Ran Carthon, which a lot of people thought was doing pretty well, including myself. So to see him get fired was a little bit interesting. And then you saw the news coming out with, Ran Carthon wasn't the guy that had the final say over everything. It was this guy named Chad Brinker, who I guess is the president of football operations. And so a whole bunch of weird stuff was coming out. The league had to get involved about and asking Tennessee what this general manager position is really about because they posed it as like a kind of a yes man position to Chad Brinker. So it was really weird. It was really, really weird. And so after all that, they finally distinguished that no, the GM position in Tennessee is a real GM position. It's legitimate. It's the same as it always is traditionally. And they go out and they hire Mike Borgonzi. Mike Borgonzi has been with the Chiefs for a very long time, since 2009. He was a scout for many years in Kansas City and then worked his way up the totem pole over the years. And Mike Borgonzi was considered probably the best GM candidate in the NFL for this cycle. And for the Tennessee Titans, I think this is a good move. I mean, I don't know if, it doesn't look the best after firing Ran Carthon, but here, if you want to make the argument that Ran Carthon, he was a first-time GM, wasn't really experienced, right? Mike Borgonzi's never been a GM, but he's been an assistant GM, and he's also been with the same organization since 2009. So there's a lot of continuity there, and he's been there for everything since, they struggled, since the failure of Matt Castle, struggling there in Kansas City, to getting Alex Smith and Andy Reid and building what has become the best organization in the NFL right now. So I think it's the best move they could have made. And if they really want to get this ship right for Tennessee, you get the right GM and get this front office, front organization, all that top level crap fixed first. Okay, now you can think about, getting quarterback, getting this, getting that, and then you can figure that out. And along with that, after the Mike Borgonzi move had been announced, one of the big issues with Tennessee was their special teams. They had fired special teams coordinator Colt Anderson and hired John Bones Fassel to take that spot. Now, if I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, I have to be excited about this because John Bones Fassel is one of the best special team coordinators in the NFL. Really great guy. He was with Dallas the past few years, and you look at what Dallas has been able to do. You look at Kevontae Turpin, one of the best, if not the best, returner in the NFL. You have Brandon Aubrey, who's quickly turned into one of the best kickers in the NFL. A guy coming out that was not very accurate but had a strong leg. He was able to coach that guy and get him ready, and now he's one of the best kickers in the league. So this is a big move, and it shows that Tennessee is trying. They know what is wrong with their team, and they're trying to fix it. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to see because bad organizations, usually they would keep that guy or they'd fire one and find someone else. That's really not as good, which we'll get to in a second. But this is a good move. It's a good move because you get a good special teams coach that can really elevate this group that was horrible last year and literally lost games for Tennessee. Blatantly outright, the special teams unit lost games for them. It was that bad. So seeing them get one of the best coordinators in the NFL, it's a good move. Really good move. And moving on to the final piece of news here, and kind of alluded to it a second ago, the Colts earlier, a few weeks ago, had fired Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. And the new guy they're bringing in is the former Bengals defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. Okay, this is something. This is quite interesting, actually, because not only was Lou Anarumo a bad defensive coordinator, the Bengals defense was the single thing really holding this team back big time. If this defense is only mid or average, this Bengals team is in the playoffs. The Bengals defense was that bad this year. And earlier, when he first started in Cincinnati in 2020, 2021, 2022, his defenses were pretty good. The 2021 defense that Cincinnati had when they went to the Super Bowl was very underrated and honestly pretty darn good that year, despite the circumstances. And every year since, it's kind of just gotten worse and worse and worse. And during this offseason, they lost DJ Reader, they lost Chidobe Awuzie, they lost Jesse Bates, I think. Did they lose Jesse Bates? I can't remember. But they lost, 5 or 6 good quality starters on their defense and really didn't do much to replace that. So obviously that's going to hurt everybody on the field. Now, is that Lou's fault? I don't really know. I don't think so. I mean, he probably has some input on who he brings in. But granted, the Bengals were kind of strapped on cap space to my knowledge. And they're going to be even more strapped this year because you got to pay Jamar Chase, of course, and now you're probably going to pay T. Higgins too, more than likely. And while I think it's a bad move, obviously that's the move that it seems like this front office wants to make because Burrow, Higgins, Chase is literally the one thing that's won them games this year practically. They've had to put the team on their back. So the Colts hiring Lou Anarumo, getting to the Colts side of it, this is not a good move. I really don't like it because a guy that really struggled last year as a defensive coordinator, you really wanted to go get a guy after firing Gus Bradley. You wanted to hire a guy, that had more qualifications and had more recent success. Now, some people in Colts land would argue that Gus Bradley's scheme didn't fit a lot of his players compared to Lou Anarumo, who runs a lot more exotic stuff, run a lot more creative things, which kind of matches more with what the Colts are able to do talent-wise as with their players. So that is something I've heard talked about. I've heard that's an argument being made for Lou Anarumo as the DC. But I feel like just seeing what happened with Cincinnati last year, or this year, I don't know what you call this year last year, but in 2024, seeing what the Bengals did on the defense, I don't know if you want to hire that guy. That's not very encouraging. That's not very encouraging for a fan base, especially for them, which they've witnessed the turmoil and all this stuff coming out with their organization and their culture not being in the right place. And so to see this, it's not a very good sign. It's not a very good sign because you look at Tennessee, right? You look at these two organizations. You look at Tennessee, who's on the bottom of the barrel right now. And they fired the coach that had a really bad special teams unit. They fired that guy and brought in one of the best guys qualified for the job. And then you look at the Colts, they fired Gus Bradley and they hired a guy who just came off of coaching a very horrible defense. And it's like there's no jump there. The scheme's going to be different, which like I said, there's an argument being made that it's a better fit, and I can see it, I can understand it. But if you really want to improve the organization, you can't make a move that seems lateral. You can't hire this guy that's right here and hire a guy that's also right here. Like, you can't do that. That doesn't make much sense. Realistically, you want to fire, the guy that sits right here, and then you want to hire a guy that, even if he's right here and slightly above, that's better. That's an improvement. This doesn't really feel like an improvement. Obviously, we'd have to see what happens once the Colts defense touches the field in 2025, and we can start getting, rumors and stuff, and, about how they look when training camp hits back, in July and August. But right now, it just doesn't seem like a good move. It doesn't. You go from one bad DC to another bad DC. We'll just have to see, but I don't like the move, and not a great start to the Colts offseason, in my opinion. But that's it for news. We got to get right into these divisional matchups, starting with the Chiefs defeating the Houston Texans 23-14. Chiefs winning in usual Chiefs fashion, and Houston's weaknesses ultimately become their downfall. So what exactly happened in this game? I'll give you a recap. If you guys haven't watched my other recaps, or my wildcard recap, I guess I've only done one of these, I guess. Wow, that's pretty interesting and crazy to think about. But how this works is I'm going to kind of, in a way, talk about like the big points that happened in the game. So like, okay, what happened in the beginning of the game, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, right? And kind of just talk about the big points and kind of give people a feel of what happened during the game, how the game went. So this game started off pretty crazy. kickoff returner for the Chiefs, Nico Remigio, probably Remigio if I had to guess. If I botched that name, I'm sorry. He took the opening kickoff, 63 yards, and after that, Texans corner special teamer Chris Boyd is seen on camera shoving Frank Ross, the Texans special teams coordinator. And that got a flag, and next thing you know, the Chiefs start almost in the red zone practically. They start in Texans territory automatically, but I mean it's almost right there. And to see that was just a bad omen for how this game was going to go. It ultimately ended up being that way, and it's just tough. I mean, it's just tough. Like there's a lot of the big return already. That's tough. But you know what's weak? Pushing your coach. That dude, genuinely, Chris Boyd, my friend, you should be, that moment that you put your hands on a coach, you should have been dragged to the locker room, get your pads, clean out your locker room, get off the first plane that you can get back to Houston, and have your locker room cleaned out before the team gets back. Like, genuinely. Why? I just don't get why, like, we see stuff like this happen. I don't know why. It's just like it's so unprofessional. I get it. One thing is, it's true. In football, tensions are high. You're not always going to be happy with your coaches, with your teammates, and sometimes things get a little bit, chippy. Sometimes you yell at each other. Sometimes players will put their hands on each other, right? But, ultimately, everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to go in and win a game. But you can't turn on your coach and put your hands on your coach because of one bad play. Like, I get it's a bad play, but it's just really bad. It's just really, really bad. And seeing that happen, the dude should have been cut immediately and, kicked out of the game and immediately put on a first plane ride back home and had his locker cleaned out before the team ever got back. But that's not what happened. That's not what the be-all, end-all of this game. The Houston Texans defense, after all this went down, actually did a really good job. Houston's defense held Mahomes and held him to 3 points, which in most situations, they drive and score a touchdown. Most teams in that situation drive down and score a touchdown. So to come away, force the Chiefs to get a field goal here was really, really impressive. And then the next drive for the Texans, when they got to touch the ball the first time, they drove down the field. They got a field goal, and now it's a 3-3 game. And then next drive, Chiefs get the ball. Patrick Mahomes throws a deep shot to Xavier Worthy on the left sideline. Great catch, by the way, by the rookie. And after that, it looked like the Chiefs were going to score the first touchdown of the game. And, okay, now we got a game going. But they run a reverse, or was it a reverse sweep or an end around? I can't remember. But they try to run a reverse sweep, whatever, to Xavier Worthy, gets blown up, loss of 8. And then the next play, or 2 plays later, Mahomes gets sacked, and it forces another field goal. And so now we got ourselves a little bit of a chippy game here. We got a game that's very hard, defensive fought. These defenses are playing very well right now at this point. And then the next one, Texans get the ball. They're able to move down the field, and they get into field goal range. And here's where disaster begins for Houston. True disaster begins because Kami Fairbairn goes to kick a field goal. Windy conditions plaguing this game all day long. And whoop, the ball flies wide right. Didn't even have a chance. It did not even have a chance. The wind just took it and blew it away, which obviously, very, very unfortunate. And one of those, 3 of those points, those 3 points would come back to bite them in a big way here later on once we get talking about it. And then going into the second quarter, the Texans defense was continuing to get pressure. They were continuing to contain Mahomes and get after him. And in terms of throughout the entire second quarter and by the end of the first half, when looking at time of possession, total yards, plays run, like all the major stats were almost exactly identical between these two teams. They were playing each other really, really well. Houston was in this game. This defense was playing very, very well, continuing off of what they did against the Chargers. It was a great performance in the first half. It really, really was. And it genuinely felt like Houston had an opportunity to pull off the upset of a lifetime here. They really did. And then the third quarter, Texans start with the ball. And one of the keys I talked about with Houston was dominating time of possession. They finally got a long drive going to start the second half. It went over 12 minutes, almost 20 plays, and capped off by a Joe Mixon touchdown run. And that's exactly what you wanted. When I talked about Houston dominating time of possession, this is exactly what I wanted to see. because it kept Mahomes off the field for a long time. They got points off of it. That's what they needed to do to win. And unfortunately, after the touchdown run, Kami Fairbairn missed the extra point. So that was unfortunate, which is now that's 4 points left on the table. And then a couple drives, go back and forth. I think there was another field goal in there at some point by Kansas City. But the third quarter was pretty evenly matched. Both teams kind of continuing on what they did in the first half. And, the offenses kind of got awake and alive a little bit. But in the fourth quarter was almost all Kansas City. The fourth quarter was all Kansas City. Chiefs got the ball to begin the fourth quarter, and they went on their own long drive in this quarter, and finally got Kareem Hunt going, got a couple big third down and long conversions, running the football too, mind you. And the one drive, the drive that I'm talking about, we're going to get to the big play here in a second. You guys know what I'm talking about. Subtle foreshadowing, am I right? You get a roughing the passer call, very questionable. I'll talk about the referees at the end when I talk about the Chiefs. And I'll get. There's gonna be a point for it because I want to talk about it. I want to get some information. I want to get some thoughts off my chest here at the end. But they go down the field. They go on their own long drive, right? And then the Texans, along with this, the penalties really took over Houston in the second half. We'll talk about it later. But the Texans finally, their defense finally breaks down in coverage. In the red zone, Patrick Mahomes running around trying to buy time, steps up, gets sacked, and as he's falling down, is able to get the throw off and finds Travis Kelce for a touchdown. He got wide open. Azeez Al-Shire was in zone coverage trying to block him, but looking around, lost track of him, and when he realized where he was, it was way too late. That ball was out, and Kelce caught the ball just standing in the end zone by himself. And after that, the game just fell apart. The game just fell apart for Houston. The next drive, CJ Stroud got pressured a lot. The pass rush for Kansas City, which was already good all game long, really came to life. And then 2 big losses on second and third down, make it a 4th and long. And then as CJ Stroud is trying to run around and buy time, George Karlaftis catches up, is able to sack him, and it causes a turnover on downs. And Kansas City pretty much held the ball for the majority of the game. The Texans only had the ball 2 more times in this game. And the next drive, and Houston's defense gets off the field again, and the Texans go back on the field. And now is an opportunity here to bounce back and take the lead back. And the Texans went 3 and out for the first and only time in the game. First and only time in the game, we went 3 and out, and they just couldn't get away from the Chiefs' pressure. There was a missed receiver, I think, a missed throw too at one point. I think it was dropped. It was dropped by a receiver. Would have been a first down, if I remember correctly. It may have happened earlier in the game. I may be mixing that up. But anyway, Houston gives the ball back to KC. Houston's defense gets them off the field again, and then Houston gets the ball another time. And they're in position to get 3 points here. They're down by 10. So they have the opportunity here to make something happen. But were they down by 10? No, they were down by 12. Excuse me. Wait. Okay, wait. Oh, no, you're right. We're right. We were down by, not down by 10, but we were down by 11. But anyways, let me go back to my spot. Excuse me. Okay, here we are. We're back to my spot. Sorry about that, guys. But Houston, they got it one more time, legitimately one more time, and then they got in position to get 3. They had enough time to where, okay, you can get the 3 points, get Kansas City off the field one more time, go down the field and go and try and get a win and tie the game. Or they may not get a win, but tie the game. Anyways, kick gets blocked, gets sent. Goes for it. I can't remember who blocked it, but the Chiefs defender goes in and goes wham! And just absolutely sends that ball packing towards the sideline. And next thing you know, the Texans are just looking at each other. Everything looks all doom and gloom. And Kansas City on that drive ended up just running the clock out practically. And then at the end, they kind of ran out of the end zone, try and kill more clock. And some people were like, "Oh, that's a safety." Wait, no, never mind. That is a safety. They got a safety, so 21-14. Yeah, so would have this field goal. The Texans got it, then we got the ball back, and they could have went down to win the game. But so sorry about that. I forgot about that now as I'm remembering it. And some people are like, oh, they're covering the spread, and it's like, oh, come on, like they're just trying to run the clock out. Like, Jesus Christ, how else are you gonna run the clock out? Are you gonna punt the ball and give it back to Houston? And then what? They get a big play and they go for an onside kick and get it? Like, do you want to leave that to chance? No. Take the safe option, run backward, kill as much clock as you can, and ensure your victory. Like, come on. But either way, in this game, Kansas City finished with 8 sacks. And despite that, honestly, they were outgained the whole game practically. They were outgained. They were outmatched, it felt like, for a lot of this game. And for Houston, I mean, they followed their game plan near perfect and then some. But the sacks and the pressure, the big weakness of this Texans offense and this team was their offensive line, ultimately became their downfall. C.J. Stroud was pressured on nearly half of his dropbacks. Nearly half. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. You're not going to win a game like that. You're not going to win getting pressured half the time. It's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. Bad offensive line play slows everything else down. It hurts your running game, it hurts your passing game, it hurts the receivers, it hurts everybody. A bad offensive line literally hampers everything else. There's a reason why the NFL in football is so focused on the trenches, your offensive defensive line, because that's where the game starts and finishes in most times. Because if you have a good offensive line, everything else tends to work itself out. If you have a bad offensive line, it tends to hamper everything else and slow everything else down. But continuing on, the penalties also killed them. One of the things why I said Kansas City would win this game is because the Houston Texans were going to get penalties. They were going to get penalties. Whether you agree with some of them or not, we'll get there in a second. They committed penalties. And when you have more penalties, they had, 8 penalties, I think? I'll have to look at it up here in a second. But that's not going to win. And then Kami Fairbairn left 7 points on the table. With those 7 points and they get the safety, what was that, 21? That's 21-21. That's a tie game right there. The points that would have would have tied the game for Houston were right there. We're all left on the table because Kami Fairbairn missed the one kick. Is it his fault? Not really. The wing caught it, but he missed an extra point. Can't do that. And then had a kick blocked. That's poor special teams right there. And honestly, I mean, this game should have went into overtime at 21-21. It really should have been 21-21, and this game could have went into overtime, but it didn't. And it's unfortunate that Houston lost like that, but that's pretty much what happened in the game. Getting into individual performances, starting with Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, 16-25, 177 yards, and a touchdown. Not a good game for him at all. I didn't think this was a good game for him at all, because not only, obviously, Travis Kelce, who finished with 7 catches, 117 yards, had the touchdown. Travis Kelce was fantastic. We'll talk about him in a moment. But Patrick Mahomes, this was not his game. It was not his game. Not because he didn't throw for a lot of yards or didn't put up big numbers. It's because in the pocket, he struggled. The Texans defense did a fantastic job of keeping him in the pocket and containing him. He sacked him multiple times. They made him uncomfortable. They really challenged what Patrick Mahomes does best. And not very many teams have done that. And we'll talk more about Houston when we get to them. But this was not a good game from Patrick Mahomes. It simply wasn't. The touchdown was phenomenal. Falling down and being able to find Kelce wide open, that's an amazing throw. That's right there is vintage Patrick Mahomes. But outside of that, it really was not a good game for him. And Travis Kelce, like I said, he was phenomenal. He turned back the clock. I don't know why anybody thought that he was going to not show up or he was going to struggle in this game like he has all year. It's literally the same thing with like Brady and Gronk in the final years of Brady and Gronk. You remember Gronk in his final years, he kind of fell off a little bit, he was no longer Gronk, But when the playoffs roll around, he was still a dominant force. And that's just because he's been there multiple times. He knows what he needs. And, that veteran experience really came into play. And it came into play for Travis Kelce here. It reminds me just of that when Gronk was in his later years. But either way, fantastic performance. Got wide open multiple times. And then the next guy was Xavier Worthy, who had 5 for 45. But honestly, he had kind of one big catch, and that was it. Really didn't do much the rest of the game. And then only 2 more players caught a pass, and that was Noah Gray, who caught 3 for 13, and then Kareem Hunt caught 1 pass for 2 yards. That was it. That was it. There was really not a good game for the offense on Kansas City at all. And then run game-wise, Kareem Hunt finished with 8 carries, 44 yards at a touchdown. Didn't really do anything until late in the second half, fourth quarter. And then Isaiah Pacheco had 5 carries for 18 yards. I mean, this was just not a good performance from the Chiefs offense. It was simply honestly one of the worst I've seen all year. Unironically, I think was one of the worst performances I've seen from the Chiefs offense all year. And we've seen the Chiefs have some struggling performances, right? Almost all of their games, were by, no, not all of them. Majority of their games were by 1 score, and part of it was the offensive struggles, and this was one of their worst performances. But this defense stole the show. Again, 8 sacks, 5 of which came in the second half, and pressuring Stroud nearly half the time. That is a dominant performance right there. And when your offense isn't doing well, your defense steps up, and they stepped up in a big way. George Karlaftis ended up finishing with 3 sacks. I think I mentioned that. If I didn't, either way, that's my shout out to George Karlaftis, who had an incredible game. And also I want to shout out Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie really emerged this year as one of the best corners in the NFL for them. He was really good last year with L'Jarius Sneed being next to him, but with L'Jarius Sneed leaving, he had to be the number 1 guy, and he stepped up big. Very sticky in this game. He got hurt early in the game, but came back and played phenomenal. And the special teams stepped up big time as well. Obviously, the returner, we're taking the opening kickoff 63 yards. Then, extra point was missed. The wind, caused that. And the block, the last field goal blocked by Kansas City. Special teams stepped up in a big way too. And, that's what you want. That's honestly what you want. Sometimes you're not going to have the best game on offense or on defense or on special teams. But that's when you play complementary ball, and your other sides of the ball step up when one group doesn't. And that's why the Kansas City Chiefs are where they are. And that's why I say it's a usual Chiefs win. Because throughout the year, the defense had to carry this offense multiple games. And then when it mattered most, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce caught fire together. Just like they've had every playoffs they've been in together. So the playoff Chiefs are just different. That's when we talk about the Chiefs being different in the playoffs. This is exactly what we talk about and what I talk about, because Patrick Mahomes and Kelce, no matter what happens, they get into a rhythm. They know what the stakes are, and they go out and play their best ball. And then this defense went out and did what they've done all year, which is play phenomenal, get after the quarterback, and play sticky coverage. This is what they've done great all year long. And going into their keys, did they win on third down? No, they actually did not win on third down. They were awful on third down in this game. And then the second key, offensive balance, they didn't. They didn't run the ball enough, in my opinion. If they wanted to dominate time of possession, really had to run the ball, and they didn't do that. They didn't really throw the ball enough either. They were not on the field very much. And then but the third key, though, did the defense get after Stroud? Yes, and yes, they did that. And ultimately, that was the key that put them over the top. And I was kind of right about this. Why I had the Chiefs winning. They got Stroud off the field and made this offense sputter at times. And then Texans, I said they would get penalized. They got penalized in this game. They had 8 penalties for 82 yards. That's not going to work. And on the road against Kansas City, nope, not it, nada. And then the third one, when you doubt Mahomes, never. When it mattered most, falling down, threw that touchdown pass. And then in the fourth quarter, when he had to have it, he had it. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter is he had it. And going into this ref thing, can we just stop? Can we please, here's the thing. I get that the referee discussion is big, and I'm not here to defend the referees. It's not a defense for them, nor is it a defense for Kansas City. No. I just hate fans that just go on social media and they're just refs. Stop it. It's dumb. It's ignorant and it's dumb. I might be in the minority here, but a lot of people are ridiculous. It's an absolutely ridiculous argument because look, I get it. The roughing the passer calls were questionable. I'll admit that. That's fair. The referees, and also every time the referees go and face, referees are in Kansas City at home, especially in the playoffs, some weird crap happens all the time. No matter, it's bound to happen. I get it. But look, the refs didn't allow CJ Stroud to get sacked 8 times and get pressured over half the game. It wasn't the referees that missed an extra point and had a field goal get blown away and then get another one blocked. Like, the refs didn't allow, it wasn't the refs that allowed a 63-yard return to start this game off. Right? Like, that's not the refs' fault. This is my opinion on referees. I look at it like the players and coaches do. It was what people should do. If you do your job, if you go on the field and you do your job and execute, you do not put yourself in position to be at the ref's mercy. You don't. You go out and do your job, and if the Texans go out and they maintain possession and score points and contain Mahomes, they win this game. They win this game. Just off the special teams gaps alone, they lost 7 points, which would have tied the game. And honestly, probably could have won them the game had they not had the big opening kickoff and then the corner shoving his special teams coordinator, which led to 3 points. It's very much possible that this game could have been 21-17, 21-18. This game could have been 21-18. The Texans would have won. Special teams in this offensive line absolutely failed this team. And no referee bad call changes that or fixes that. Sorry, it doesn't. Hold your team accountable, just like the players and the coaches hold each other and themselves accountable. And stop blaming the refs. It's weak. It's a weak and dumb argument. And I get it. Referees, they're going to get bad calls. Sometimes they're really bad. We had some games this year where officiating was objectively horrible. There is no doubting that. And I'm not defending referees. I'm not defending the Chiefs. Like I said, I'm not. But it comes to a point where sometimes you just got to accept that your team just didn't do their job. They simply didn't do enough to win, bro. Sometimes you have to admit that. And that's pretty much my case on it. That's pretty much all I have to say. I'm not going to run on that anymore. But that's just something I really needed to get off my chest, because people that go on social media and immediately blame the refs over and over and over again instead of acknowledging the issues that their team had, which honestly were greater than the controversial penalties that were there. There's only a few really controversial penalties, while the Texans had bad offensive line play and bad special teams play all game long. So, sorry, it's just I can't hear referee blame when the team didn't do their job and didn't do enough to win. I can't support that. I'm not willing to hear that conversation. So that's enough of that. I'm going to continue moving on, and we'll get with Houston here to conclude this part. And CJ Stroud finishes 19 of 28, 245 yards, had 6 runs for 42 yards. Despite the leg injury near the end, got hauled off, and then in one of his first runs, he got hit and his knee got a little banged up. He was fantastic. CJ Stroud was awesome in this game, and he put this team on his back. Obviously, like on the runs, massive. The runs were absolutely massive. He's not known for his, mobility and being able to run for yards downfield, but he did that a lot in this game and killed this defense multiple times. And of course, he was able to distribute the ball well. He got more out of everybody. 8 players caught a pass, but Nico Collins finished with 81 yards, 5 grabs. Schultz, 4 for 63. And then the rookie Xavier Hutchinson, maybe second-year man Xavier Hutchinson, finished 4 catches, 52 yards. They used their players in the first half and most of the second half. I mean, when I talk about getting CJ Stroud and getting everybody involved and helping him keep him clean in that aspect, they did really good. But the offensive line was just so bad, a lot of it got overshadowed, and that's what people are going to talk about. And then along with that, Joe Mixon, he had 18 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. Good performance stat-wise, but in order to, dominate time of possession, Joe Mixon needs to get the ball more. They simply didn't run the ball enough, and considering Bobby Slowick is more of a run-first oriented guy, their offensive coordinator, right? It was kind of disappointing to see them not utilize the run game more, especially with all the injuries at wide receiver, right? So that was kind of unfortunate, but this defense for Houston really stole the show here. Other than CJ Stroud, this defense stole the show. They were fantastic. Other than the penalties and the touchdown of Travis Kelce, they got after Mahomes, contained him in a way that I was very impressed by. And honestly, I mean, it was probably, if I really had to be realistic with myself, given the circumstances, given the situation, and everything the Houston Texans have been through this year, right? Last week against the Chargers was probably a better performance. It was probably a better performance because they got the turnovers, whatnot, and they really shut this offense down. For this game, though, given the circumstances, if the Chargers game defensively is like right here, the defense's performance against the Chiefs is like right here. It's really close. It was a really, really good performance. And the only thing that would have made it perfect is if they had gotten a couple turnovers or gotten at least one turnover. Because now you talk about winning the turnover battle, and every team in the divisional playoff, the other 3 games, the teams that won the turnover battle won the game. So more than likely, in my opinion, Chiefs get an interception or the Texans get an interception or a fumble, they probably win. So, it was that close of a game and that great of a performance by the Houston Texans. Phenomenal from them. It's just too bad the offensive line and special teams really let them down in this game. Really unfortunate because they really pitched a winning performance against Kansas City. You can't do it much better than that. Genuinely, you can't. So, for Houston, congratulations there on or Houston defense, congratulations. But getting into the keys, the first one, deceiving this defense and throwing the kitchen sink at them. Did they really deceive? Not really. But they did get everybody involved. They did try and throw the kitchen sink at him. But second key, did they keep CJ Stroud clean and help him? No, they didn't. This offensive line was awful and honestly one of their worst performances of the year. Third key, did they dominate time of possession? They won it, but only by a decent, okay margin, by like a couple minutes. And they only had one drive in the game that was really, really long. And if Houston was going to win this game, they had to do that all the time. And they only did it once. So I can't really say they dominated time of possession because they were, neck and neck with Kansas City the whole game. And then minimizing penalties, key number 4. Nope. The penalties happened and, I called it. This is why teams that play Kansas City commit so many penalties, because you get into these positions like the Joe Mixon touchdown run where you have a lead over Kansas City and you're up, right? And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you get a little bit antsy because on third down, here's an opportunity for a sack. Here's an opportunity to make a play and get them off the field and put more points on the board. Nope, get a little bit extra and it causes something questionable to happen and the refs throw the flag, and next thing you know, you got a roughing a passer, and Mahomes throws the touchdown to Kelsey. That's what happens. And so the penalties, it was unfortunate. It killed them, and that was not the formula to beat Kansas City. And their season for the Texans, it ends in a sad way. But honestly, you know what? I said this team was mid, but you know what? They show that they truly are a good football team. They are a good football team, and maybe I was selling them short, but this is a prime example of once you're in the playoffs, no matter if you're the 1st seed or 7th seed, once you're in it, you have a shot, and the Texans went out there and they took their shot. They took down one of the better teams in the NFL in the LA Chargers, a team that had a great offense and a great defense, shut them down, and then their defense put up a performance in Kansas City that was probably a winning performance, and CJ Stroud literally played fantastic despite everything happening around him. But we'll talk about a little bit more about Houston's season when I do predictions versus reality. I actually finished that script a couple of days ago, but it ended up being a good season for Houston because now look, you have 2 years of winning your division, winning a playoff game, and it's bona fide now. Like there was really nobody seriously doubting it this year, even with CJ Stroud's struggles. But, CJ Stroud and this Houston Texans team, Texans have their guy. They have their guy. They have the quarterback. They got their head coach. They got an elite corner, an elite edge rusher. They have elite receivers. They have great stuff on the big, important positions on their team. And Houston can probably only go up from here. This is the best we've ever seen the Houston Texans. And seeing them show out in these playoffs and play the game and play as well as they did for the most part, that was very encouraging and very impressive to see. Excuse me. We're going to talk about this next game and make a little bit of a jumpy transition. Next up on the Sunday Night Football on Fox, which is weird. I don't know why they made the Kansas City game. They made that NBC. Did they make it NBC? I think. No, was it? No, it was ESPN. It was on ESPN during the day, and then at nighttime it was on Fox, and then 3 o'clock on Sunday the Rams and Eagles was on NBC, and then the primetime game Buffalo Ravens was on CBS. That one I can kind of get. I mean, every playoff game, not Troy Aikman, every AFC playoff game between like Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo, it's always Jim Nantz and Tony Romo calling that game. Always. It's always those guys calling the game. But that's besides the point. Moving on. Excuse me here. The Commanders. The Washington Commanders defeat the Detroit Lions 45-31. Commanders truly shocking the world, locking in their first NFC Championship appearance since 1991. And for Detroit, this game will go down in history in 3 words. Motor City Meltdown. I started posting that. I actually posted that on Twitter probably like in the middle of the third quarter, I think it was after Jared Goff's second interception. Was it his first or second? Or third? Was it his third interception? Either way, we'll talk about it when we get down there. But the throw in the end zone that was picked off by Sainristil, yeah, that one was, that's when I posted on Twitter, which, by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at the Shumake Take, you can go ahead and follow me there. Slowly implementing social media back into the program, into the brand. So go ahead and follow me there, and follow me on my other socials, by the way, if you haven't already. But enough of my own endorsing here. What happened in this game? We'll move on there. We'll move on and talk about what happened in this game. So the Commanders, their first drive started off really well. They got a big catch and run to Austin Eckler, and around midfield, they were, looking like they were getting ready to assert their dominance, but the Lions defense got stingy, and then on 4th down, they tried to run this like fake. I don't know what they were trying to run, but it looked like they were, Marcus Mariota, the backup quarterback, was in there, and it looked like they tried to fake like a handoff to someone else, but it got stuffed. Mariota got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, and the Lions immediately drove down the field, and Jahmyr Gibbs scored the opening touchdown. And it looked really quickly like the Commanders were in over their head. It literally looked, from that moment on, and I thought the Detroit Lions were going to take over this football game. And they didn't. The next drive, the Commanders tried stretching this defense a little bit, but Detroit was swarming the ball. And then on 3rd down, Jaden Daniels finds De'Ami Brown wide open, but he dropped it. And next thing you know, the Lions get near the red zone on their next drive. I can't remember if it was near the red zone or was it in the red zone. I can't remember. But it was like right there, like on the 25, 20-yard line. And when it looks like the Lions are about to go up 14-0 early in the first quarter, boom. Dorrance Armstrong comes from behind Jared Goff, bam, pops that ball out. It's on the ground. Frankie Louvu picks it up. And the next thing you know, it's absolute pandemonium in Detroit. Fans are yelling. It's like, holy crap, like what just happened? And then the Commanders, the next drive, Jaden Daniels finds De'Ami Brown for a big catch and a bounce back moment for him, and then finally gets more mobile, able to move around the pocket. And then on 4th and 3, he finds Zach Ertz, and then another deep shot later, Kirby Joseph, the safety for the Lions, gets a pass interference call, putting the Commanders on the red zone, and then Brian Robinson, they get to the goal line, powers it in for the touchdown, giving the Commanders their first points of the game, tying it for the moment, and seeing Brian Robinson immediately run to Dan Quinn, give him a hug. I mean, that's a cool moment, guys. That was a really cool moment, because Brian Robinson's been through a lot. Early in his career, got shot in the leg, and then came back, kind of struggled, and earlier, not before this year, but before last year, it looked like he was probably not going to make the roster and get cut, but he made the roster, played really well, and now he's a focal point of his offense for them. I mean, this backfield with him and Austin Eckler is kind of like I don't want to say a smash and dash, but Brian Robinson, a powerful runner, and then you have Austin Eckler, who's more of an elusive receiving back, and they've ended up complementing each other really, really well this year, which is part of the reason why Jaden Daniels has had the year that he had. It's because Brian Robinson had a decent year, running the ball with Austin Eckler. And so seeing Brian Robinson, score that touchdown and be happy about it and celebrating with his coach, I mean, that's just a great moment. It's a great moment. Brian Robinson's a great story. So to see him get that touchdown, he ended up finishing with 2 on the night. Really happy to see. Really happy to see him get that moment for him. And then the next drive, the Lions are on the move again. They get down the field, get into the red zone, and then on 1st and goal, Jared Goff throws a touchdown to Sam Laporta, which, by the way, incredible catch. Diving, caught it with his left hand, tucked it in. Like, it was a perfect throw. It was a perfect throw. Like, literally just on perfect right there. Maybe I should say a perfect throw because had to dive and go catch it. But it was a great catch. I mean, he just dove, got it, was able to haul it in. And the cool part about this was they sent their backup tackle, Dan Skipper, who's played a lot, as a fake, what's the word, decoy guy in the red zone or in the green zone for the Detroit Lions. And they ran Dan Skipper on a route underneath where Laporta was running, and it ended up getting double covered. Which put Laporta in one-on-one coverage, and because Laporta's a great tight end, he was able to get open enough, and Goff just threw it there, and he went and made the catch. So seeing an offensive lineman get double covered was pretty cool. That's a pretty cool scheme. I don't know if obviously it wasn't meant to happen, but it ended up happening, and that's pretty cool stuff. And so at that point, like, it was kind of set in my mind that, okay, we're going to have a shootout from start to finish. I thought the second half would be more of the shootout, and the first half would be a little bit more kind of, traditional. But no, like, it was fireworks from the get-go. And so after that moment, I was like, all right, we got ourselves a game. Let's go. Like, this is going to be really fun. And then the next drive, the Commanders didn't disappoint. They threw a quick wide receiver screen to Terry McLaurin. His blockers were able to set up, and he split between two defenders and ran it 68 yards to the house. And it's just like, it's chaos. At this point, it's straight up chaos in Detroit. They're both going after it. And then on the next drive, Jared Goff is, about midfield, throws a big, takes a shot down the field, ball gets overthrown, and next thing you know, it's in Shane Ristill's hands. And bam, he's got it, and he's run it backwards. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, that's 2 turnovers for Jared Goff. Detroit's got a problem. Detroit's got a big problem brewing. And then, he on the run back, Jared Goff gets hit really hard. Probably should have been a targeting call, but it didn't get called. And it ends up being a pick 6. Commanders go up by 10, and Jared Goff goes into the medical tent for an injury. And at that point, I mean, you could kind of feel like the crowd really die down for Detroit. Because at that point, I mean, without Jared Goff, I mean, what are they going to do? And then, after that, Teddy Bridgewater comes in for Detroit. I thought Hendon Hooker would come in. No, it's Teddy Bridgewater, which, by the way, if you haven't, followed his story, he was the head coach of his alma mater high school and took them to the state championship and won it in his first year. And then after that, he got a call to, suit up for Detroit, and he suited up for Detroit the past few weeks of the regular season, and here he is. He goes into the game, completes a pass, makes a couple of fine handoffs, and he was fine. In the moment for what, he needed to do, I thought it was a really cool moment to see him not be in an NFL uniform for almost an entire year while coaching his, former, high school, his alma mater, right? Coaching his high school team to a state championship, and then a few weeks later, he's out there throwing a pass in the NFL again. That's really cool. That was really cool to see Teddy Bridgewater do that. And so he goes in and he's fine, and then Ben Johnson calls one of the best calls I think he's ever called. Double reverse to Jamison Williams. Runs it 61 yards. And the Lions, the fans, the team, all of a sudden just had their life back. Literally just had their life back. And this game felt like this game was a shootout. It was gonna get good, and it was good. It was great, and it was only to get better. And then the Commanders, they immediately score another touchdown. It was another big throw to De'Ami Brown that it ended up putting him inside the 10. He got wide open, and then on 4th down, or no, it wasn't 4th down. Excuse me. Jaden Daniels finds Zach Ertz for a touchdown. Commanders extend their lead. And then Jared Goff in the next drive comes back on the field for Detroit, and they have a chance here at the 2-minute warning to drive down the field and get another drive going or get some points right before halftime. And then it was a throw. Okay, so with the second interception where he was looking for Jamison Williams, who's about the 30-yard line, chucks it down the field looking for him on a deep post, underthrown. Shane Ristill picks it off, And at this point, that's when I made the tweet that the Motor City meltdown. That's when I made the tweet. And at that point, I was just thinking, like, what is happening in Detroit? Like, it was just, that's when it really began to settle in. Like, the Lions are in trouble, and the question and the doubt if they could win this game actually started to come up. So I was like, okay, you have another half to go. We'll see what happens. But it was just like, things were very worrisome. Like, I genuinely got worried for the Lions. Because I was like, I don't know if they can overcome from this. Like, they've not had a situation like this all year. Well, no, I take that back. They did against Houston, where Jared Goff threw 5 picks. I take that back. Either way, it's uncommon. And you're going up against, you're doing this in the playoffs. It makes it that much harder. But the second half starts with the Commanders' ball, and the Lions get off the field, and on the first drive for the Lions offensively, they drive down the field, and Jahmyr Gibbs scores his second touchdown, which, by the way, Jahmyr Gibbs, absolutely fantastic in this game. We'll talk about more later, but seeing him show up in this game was phenomenal, and he put this team on his back multiple times. And then the next drive, the Commanders get a 4th down conversion. Jaden Daniels rolls to his right and is able to get it. And they get into another 4th down, and this is on the 3 or 4 yard line. It's right there inside the 10, and then the Lions get a 12-man on the field penalty. The Lions are known for not committing penalties, being well disciplined, and in that moment, they had a big mistake, gave the Commanders 1st down and goal, and Brian Robinson scored for his second touchdown of the night. And about this moment really was where things were like, okay, like, Detroit's got a problem, and they're in a big hole they need to dig themselves out of. And then the next drive on offense, then it's the bad call. They try and do another double reverse, and to Jameson Williams, and this time he tries to throw it up, and it gets intercepted, and then the game was over. At that point, the game was over for the Lions. It was too far. That was their 5th turnover of the game, and it was just awful. It was just terrible. And after a few more drives back and forth in the 4th quarter, the Commanders held off Detroit and sealed their win. Jaden Daniels will be the 6th rookie quarterback to ever reach the conference championship. And in this game, he was absolutely phenomenal. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 16 runs for 51 yards. This guy was awesome. He's not a rookie. Like, this dude simply is not a rookie. Like, he hasn't, other than week 1, he hasn't had a moment in his career to this point where he's looked like a rookie. Every week, he's just gotten better and better and better and better and better and better. And now we're looking at a 4-13 team at the end of 2023. And in 2024, while, their head coach gets fired and, this team looks awful, 1 calendar year later, they're a game away from the Super Bowl. What? No one. And I know no one, not even the Commanders themselves, I don't think expected to get to this point. No one did. Literally zero. No one. Literally no one on this planet thought that the Commanders would get to this point. And it all began with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels just, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what more I can say about Jaden Daniels that I haven't said all year long about how great he's been. Literally, it's not just that, like, he's a rookie quarterback and, he's winning games and looking good. No, it's the fact that, like, when the game is on the line and they need a play, they're turning to him. In most situations, they take the ball out of their rookie's hands to not make things hard on him. Okay, give it to the running back or let the defense, hold off. No, they're in critical situations. They're giving the ball to Jaden Daniels, and he is delivering and succeeding. We've never seen this before. We have never, ever seen this before by a rookie quarterback, and this performance exemplifies everything that we've been talking about him all year long. Literally. Which is what a phenomenal performance. And to spark that, he had help. He had a lot of help in this game. Terry McLaurin, 4 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Great. De'Ami Brown, phenomenal. Phenomenal. Again, in another playoff game. He was great against Tampa. He was great in this game. Finished with 6 catches, 98 yards. After he dropped that first pass on 3rd and long to start the game, or like the second drive for the Commanders, he didn't drop another one after that. And he got deep downfield all the time. When they needed him most, he was able to get up the field, make the catch. But not only make the catch, he got wide open too a lot. A lot of those catches, he got wide open. Absolutely phenomenal. Then Austin Eckler, he had 4 carries, 41 yards, or 4 catches, 41 yards, had the big catch and run to start the game, and add on 47 rushing yards as well. So he was good in this game. And then Zach Ertz had the touchdown. He didn't have 5 catches, 28 yards, but moving the chains, reliable, more just what Zach Ertz has been all year. And then Brian Robinson Jr., 15 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was great. He was great in this game. Didn't get a lot of touches, but made them count. And when it really mattered most, he got them into the end zone and got them points. Good performance from Brian Robinson Jr. But this defense, this might sound a little controversial, but they were great. This defense was great. Going against the Lions, it was guaranteed that they were going to get cooked all game long. Like there was no doubting that. So how do you counter? Like if you're going to get cooked and you know you're going to get cooked, how do you counter? Great equalizer in the NFL. What is it, guys? Turnovers, all of them happening in their own territory. And if you want to beat a better team, take the ball away. And not only did they get 5 takeaways, they only allowed 10 points in the second half and barely let the Lions cross midfield. Phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic performance from this Commanders defense. If they wanted to win, this is the way that they were going to have to do it. If they really wanted to win, that's what's going to have to happen. And it happened. The Commanders defense stepped up in a big way. And holistically, looking at on the entire keys for the Commanders, matching Detroit's aggression, they did that. They went for it on 4th down 4 times to Detroit's 2. They outgained them there. And did they attack the corners and make them run with Jaden Daniels? Excuse me, sorry. But did they attack these corners and make them run? Yes, they did. Multiple times Jaden Daniels got out of the pocket and got receivers open and really made this secondary run around. And, a lot of reasons why De'Ami Brown got wide open was because of that. And then the third one, this offense needed to be perfect. Yes, and yes. They were practically perfect in this game. No turnovers, no costly mistakes. Had a couple penalties, sure. But they went out there and they dropped 45 points in Detroit, dude. 45 points in Detroit. Come on. That's a phenomenal performance. Absolutely phenomenal performance. The offense for the Commanders needed to have a game like this, and they went out there and they did it. I want to talk more about it and talk about more of the little things that they did right. But I'll have to save it for predictions versus reality, because this is not predictions versus reality. We're recapping a game here. But the Cinderella story continues, and going into this Philly game, which we'll talk about, and I'm going to record right after this one, so if you guys want to go check it out, I would highly advise it. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, when this video is up, or not when this video is up, but when the next one is up, go back to this point and I'll throw a card up there. So maybe if you catch this video on later on, and then you want to check this one after, go ahead. I'll throw a card up there and I'll throw another card. You got it. You guys got it. But this game against Philly, I'm anticipating it to be a classic, and it's going to be a fun one to talk about when we do the conference championship preview. But getting to the Lions here, I don't want to end on a negative note, but got to talk about Detroit here last, because they deserve a little bit of time here as well. Jared Goff, 23 of 40, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, had 3 interceptions in the fumble. Honestly, this might sound a little controversial too, but despite the bad plays, other than that, I thought Jared Goff played pretty well. Honestly, I thought he didn't have a lot of bad throws. He didn't have a ton of questionable decisions. It was just those few bad decisions really weighed his performance down. And it sucks, because Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown. He was great. I wish he ran the ball more. Would have helped them out a ton. But, Amon-Ra St. Brown had 8 catches, 137 yards. Really didn't get used much till the fourth quarter. But when it mattered, he was money. Jahmyr Gibbs, as great as he was on the ground through the air, 6 catches, 70 yards. Sam Laporta, 6 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. right? This offense was great as usual. Ben Johnson had the trick plays, had a great plays dialed up. But, the interceptions proved to be too much, and it caused this defense to break down near the end of the game, and they simply could not get the stops they needed to really give this offense a chance to come back and win the game. Because the Commanders, the Lions, the Lions were down 10 a lot in this game for the majority of this game. That's not a big deficit. That's really not a big deficit at all. But when you keep turning the ball over, it makes it really hard to crawl your way back out of it. And defensively, they simply weren't built for it. They're simply not built for a situation like that. With all the injuries that have been on this Detroit Lions defense and have plagued them all year long, they finally caught up with them. They couldn't get a pass rush, and it allowed Jaden Daniels to do what he did and really, hurt these corners. The corners suffered because they couldn't get one. The Commanders didn't allow a single sack all game long. This offensive line that's been not very particularly great for the Commanders didn't allow a sack. That's a phenomenal performance by them. In continuing on with the keys to the win, the first key was to run the ball a lot. They didn't run the ball enough. It was successful, but in my opinion, not enough. Spacing and quickness, yeah, they did. I mean, they got receivers open. They schemed guys open. Obviously, the trick plays were awesome, except for the Jamison Williams interception. That was terrible. But the third one, did they contain Jaden Daniels? No, they didn't. They simply didn't. Jaden Daniels, as the game went on, continued to do more and more and more and put this game further and further away for the Detroit Lions. And honestly, this game feels, or I guess it felt, because we're talking about the past, this game felt almost exactly, and I mean almost exactly like the 2021 divisional round where the Bengals went into Tennessee and defeated the Titans. It literally felt just like that. Both teams, you got the coach of the year. Dan Campbell's winning coach of the year, guys. I'm already booking that in. But you get coach of the year. Teams were very, very injured. Probably the most injured teams in the NFL. A ton of guys on IR. And your veteran quarterback, which had been playing great for you all year long, melted down in the biggest moment. And quite frankly, just let his team down. It was the exact same scenario. And, and the same thing too. You were at home and you lost to a young quarterback on a Cinderella run. It was literally the exact same situation, almost identically. If you look at Ryan Tannehill and Jared Goff's stat line in those two games, they're almost, other than the yards, they're almost exactly identical. They're literally almost exactly identical, which is crazy to think about. And now with Ben Johnson and Aaron, he's gone, and then Aaron Glenn probably leaving too. Next year will be the biggest test in Lions history to see where they really are as an organization. But we'll talk more about that in predictions versus reality. I just want to quickly acknowledge how great, incredible the Lions season was this year. This was the greatest season the Lions have ever had. Straight up, it was. And it's such a shame to see it end the way it did. But I mean, to see the Lions these past 2 years go from literally the bottom of the bottom of NFL franchises, and to see them these past couple of years, 3 years or so, really develop a culture and really, become one of the most top tier organizations in the NFL that now players and coaches want to come to instead of get away from like they have forever. It's such a great breath of fresh air to see an organization that's been so bad become so good and literally become one of the model organizations of the entire NFL. It's amazing. It's awesome. And like I said, this loss sucks. But I mean, the Lions, the Lions are new. They're different. They're better now. And I think they're going to improve and bounce back from this more than any other team the Lions have ever would. I mean, it's just, I can't stress enough how great of a year the Lions had. And I hate that it ended like this. I genuinely, I'm not a Lions fan, but I felt really upset for them when the clock hit 0. But at the same time, you got to be so happy for Jaden Daniels, man. You have to be so happy for what he's been able to do. And you look at just what this guy has done. It's unprecedented. It's unprecedented. What a phenomenal game. Regardless of what happened, what a phenomenal game. An absolute classic for right or wrong reasons. This is one that people are going to remember for a long, long, long time. And speaking of time, it's transition time. Are you guys ready for this one? All right, come on, Garrett. Think of something on the fly. And boom. All right, and we are back. Between transitions, I decided to take a break to charge my phone and make sure I had enough juice to get through the second half of the video, and also to make sure my video did not buffer, or audio and video didn't fall out of sync, because that's still an issue. And upon looking at the video back, yeah, it did that. So for everyone that saw it, I am so sorry. Obviously, I'm still trying to figure it out. The big issue now is, like, I know what I know how to mitigate the problem. Now it's a matter of, like, not talking so much to where I lose track of time and realize, okay, after an hour and 11 minutes of recording, at this point, the audio and video are out of sync. It's gone. Like, it's straight up gone at that point. So for the end of that segment, I'm sorry. I'm hoping this one's going to be better. Honestly, I think I'll need to get like an old phone or something and just get like a little timer and just like set it like right here where you guys can't see it. And occasionally, it's like I go to, scroll down through my script and talk about stuff. I'll just look at the time and just say, okay, eventually it's going to hit a certain point where it's like, okay, time for transition. Bam, I just do it and find a way to make it work. So I am sorry. I'm going to tweak with it. I'm going to make it work. I promise, guys. I promise. I don't want to make bad content, but I got to be able to keep track of time and get through my points properly without having what you guys just witnessed happen. But at least I hope the transition was okay. I didn't really think about it too much. I kind of just did something on the fly, so we're about to find out how good it looks. If it looks good, awesome. If it doesn't, I am sorry. But moving on to the Eagles defeating the Rams 28-22. Eagles hanging on in a snow game battle. And the Rams, while they lost, showed a lot of good things. Honestly, I did not catch this game in its entirety. I had other things to take care of and really didn't take too many notes. I was just kind of relaxing watching the game. So I don't have a full in-depth recap like I did with the Commanders and Lions and then the Texans and Chiefs. I don't have that type of a recap, but this game was close from start to finish. We got snow. We got snow game in the playoffs. And I've seen a couple people talk about how snow games are overrated. And it's like, okay, I get the argument that, fumbles happen and, like the offense, begins to slow down. And it's like, sure, but also snow. Like, we don't get snow games anymore, it feels like. Most of the time when there's going to be snow, like the game either gets delayed, like a weather delay, like rain. And it's like, no, let the snow come down. Let them play in the snow. Figure it out, right? Being able to adapt to the weather conditions that happen during a game, that's part of, good football teams being well coached to adapt to situations. That's part of going in to win a game, is knowing, okay, when the weather starts to change and starts to get a little nasty, how do we adjust and go to win? And the Eagles were able to make that adjustment. But anyways, the thing was, every time Philly scored, the Rams were able to respond, and the defensive line and the defense, and particularly the defensive line for LA, really did step up in this game. And it was a really, really good performance. And for Philly, it was all Saquon Barkley. He had two 60-yard plus touchdown runs in this game, which, by the way, he had two 60-yard touchdown runs against the Rams in their earlier meeting earlier in the year, like week 8, week 9, which, wow, that's pretty cool. And then after the last score and the Rams went down, they got a touchdown. They got off the field on defense, and then finally, on the final drive of the game, had a chance to win. Stafford hits a big throw to Puka Nacua. Looks like they're going to drive down the field, and they're going to win this game and knock off the Eagles and shock the world. And the Eagles clutched up, made a goal line stand, forced an incompletion on fourth down, and that was all she wrote. Going into individual performances, again, a little prematurely, I apologize. Jalen Hurts, 15 of 20, 128 yards, adds 70 yards and a touchdown, had a 44-yard rushing touchdown, which was pretty cool, in my opinion. Dallas Goedert, 4 catches, 56 yards. Glad to see him playing well, coming off IR. He's been great in these playoffs so far. And then Barkley and Devontae Smith both tallied up 4 catches. A.J. Brown, 2 for 14. Not a great day throwing the football. Simply, I'll elaborate it more at the end of this bit, but simply not the performance that I really wanted to see. But Saquon Barkley had 26 carries, 205 yards, and those 2 touchdowns. So he continues to be dominant for them. And this defense, they played pretty well. They were a little shaky. They let the Rams get some, deceive them and out-scheme them a little bit, which I thought the Rams would do to a certain extent. It was part of their game plan to win. But they got the forced fumbles in the second half from Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams, and it really put a chokehold on LA. And, well, they did get 5 sacks. They sacked Stafford 5 times, held them 6 for 16 on third down, and they got the stop at the end, which sealed the win. That's, the first half wasn't, the greatest, but the second half, like I said, they got the turnovers. They were able to get after Stafford, and that's ultimately what won them the game there. So, excuse me, my mouth is really dry, sorry. This performance by Philly's defense, in the second half, really helped them push over the top. And looking at their keys, the first key, starting fast, they got a touchdown to start the game, but they quickly faded out. Didn't get much past that. The second key, offensive line staying vigilant. No. The Eagles allowed 7 sacks and one of them being a safety. The interior offensive line, like Cam Jurgens, was not having a good game. This was not a good game by the interior offensive line for the Eagles. Cam Jurgens got picked on. Mekhi Becton got picked on. It was a tough game in the passing game for the Eagles. And along with that, did they spread the ball around early? No, they didn't. They did not spread the ball around. They barely threw the ball at all. Granted, Saquon Barkley was doing what he was doing, but I expected the Eagles to get a little bit more out of their passing game, and then defensively playing soundly and not getting caught on their heels. They got caught lacking multiple times in this game, but they did, like I said, they made big plays when it was necessary. So you can say what you want. They ended up doing what they needed to do to win, and then not letting the pressure sink in. Yeah, they didn't let the pressure sink in, and that continues to be the biggest key for the Philadelphia Eagles as they continue to run through the playoffs and their home stadium. But honestly, this was not a very encouraging win for Philly. It really wasn't. This was not the game the Eagles needed, because after the way that their offense started against Green Bay, they really needed to start fast against the Rams, and they simply couldn't do that. And now you're going into the NFC Championship against the Commanders, who are as hot as they've ever been, and that's going to be their first key. Like, kind of a bit of a spoiler for the next episode, for the conference championship preview video. The first key for the Eagles is going to be starting fast with the passing game. It's going to have to be, because if it's not, the Commanders are going to get up on the Eagles early, and they might upset them and win and go to the Super Bowl. And now more than ever, the Eagles need to get their passing game going, because what they did against the Packers and what they did against the Rams, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work against the Commanders. They're your division rival. They know you better than any of these other teams that you went up against. And it's really not encouraging. If they come out like this next week, they're going to lose. They are going to lose. I will say that right now. If they come out sluggish in the passing game like they did these first couple of games, they will lose this game against the Commanders. Moving on to the Rams. We'll end off of them. So the Rams, Matthew Stafford, 26 of 44, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua, 6 for 97. Robinson, 3 for 74. Cooper Kupp, 5 for 61. And Higbee, 7 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. This passing game, Matthew Stafford in particular, they were pretty darn good in this game. Against a Philly defense that's been very good this year, one of the best in the NFL, they put up a very solid performance. And Kyron Williams also had a decent game, 19 carries, 106 yards. He didn't have the fumble, but, take away the fumble, overall he played really well. This offense was really good, and they competed to the very end. I did not expect this. I thought that the Rams would have their moments, but they wouldn't be able to put a full, complete performance on the field. But they mostly did that, and they were in position to win this game. They had the ball last. And so to see them, put up the performance that they did, that's very impressive. That's very impressive. And shout out to Sean McVay and his coaching staff for getting him in this position. Right here, this is all coaching right here, guys. You want to talk about one team that's objectively better than one, and the game being close as it is? It's coaching. It's literally coaching. It's literally like the coaching and getting these players ready and making them adapt. It's just so important. And to see the Rams be able to do that despite everything that's happened to the Rams this year, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Very impressive job from this offensive side of the ball in general for this game. And defensively, they played pretty well too. Sure, Saquon Barkley went for 200 yards, but this young secondary with two starting corners, being rookies, they had another solid performance, and they got 7 sacks. The safety against the Eagles, offensive line, which is one of the best in the NFL. Shout out to defensive coordinator Chris Shula, because looking at this defensive line, we'll talk more about it when the predictions versus reality Rams video drops. But Jesus Christ, this Rams defensive line next year, keep an eye out for it, because this might become one of the best defensive lines in football. They already were this year. They're probably gonna step up next year big time, and there's a reason why Chris Shula has now kind of he's now getting ready to enter the head coaching conversation, the next coordinator to become a head coach and step up. He's in that conversation swirling around now, and after 2025, if they defensive line makes a big step up, then he's going to get a head coaching job pretty soon. But shout out to Chris Shula. What a great performance by the Rams defense, despite everything that happened, because they were in position to win this football game. And looking at their keys, key number 1, did they deceive this offensive line? Yeah, they did. You don't get 7 sacks and a safety on Philly's offensive line without being able to challenge them and deceive them, and they did. They got pressure from multiple different spots, just like they did against the Vikings. They were able to win with power. They got after Cam Jurgens. They got after Mekhi Becton and really challenged them. And then the second key, deceiving this defense and getting more out of players, they did. For the most part, they did. They got a lot of their best players. Obviously, caught multiple passes, got involved, and then deceiving the defense. They were able to get points. They were able to keep this game competitive and score multiple points and keep this game close. Every time the Eagles got up, the Rams responded and were able to keep this game close the entire time. But the third key is where everything fell apart, which is do not turn the ball over. Those 2 fumbles ultimately were what ended the game. It really ended the game and, buried their grave for the Rams. Literally, it was those 2 turnovers that made the difference. Literally, it was just like that. Those 2 fumbles alone made the difference. And the Rams, they've been a team that thrives off of not making mistakes. And the Eagles have one of the best turnovers. Have gotten, I think, they're near the top of the NFL in turnovers this year. So, hey, that's what, and sometimes it's the cookie crumbles that way. Maybe if the Rams and the Eagles face off again, maybe the Rams win. Maybe they do. Just the turnovers really just killed them, and they had a shot, but that's what did them in. But the Rams, to get to this point, what a great year. What a great year. They started 2-6, crawled all the way back to finish 10-7, winning their division, the NFC West, winning and destroying Minnesota, and giving Philly almost all they could handle. Really. And so to see this Rams team go out and do that, wow. Congratulations. Congratulations. I did not expect the Rams, honestly, at the midway point to get to this point, even though I had them finishing 10-7. They're one of 3 teams that actually got their records exactly predicted, which is pretty interesting. But either way, I didn't expect the Rams, after they were 2-6, to get to this point. And so to see them get to this point, it's awesome. It's really awesome to see how well this offense is performing, or has performed, especially in this game, and to see how far this young defense, has come along, especially in this later half of the year, playing as well as they did. But the Rams, they ultimately lose this game, but they showed a lot of promise and a lot of good things to look forward to. Definitely, the sky is still looking bright in LA. All right, now we got to get to the final game of the divisional round. The Buffalo Bills defeating the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. Bills moving on to the AFC Championship to face Kansas City. And Baltimore's season ends in heartbreak yet again. First quarter, these teams split touchdowns on their opening drive. Lamar throwing down the field early. Buffalo ran all over the Ravens defense, and it was pretty even this whole time. And then Lamar Jackson throws a pick to Taylor Rapp. First big mistake for the Baltimore Ravens. Overthrown ball, it looked like it was a miscommunication maybe, But either way, the ball was just got away from the receiver, gets picked off, and leads to the first turnover. The Ravens are able to get the Bills off the field, but going into the second quarter, Ravens begin running the ball with ease. They finally get their run game going, and it looks like they're going to respond, but then Lamar gets a bad snap, rolls, tries to make DeMar Hamlin miss, but in the snow, you can't really dig your feet, can't really jump, and he's spun around, stumbled, and the next thing you know, that ball that he was holding on, whoop, it falls right out of his hands. Literally just grew legs and just jumped right out of his hands. And the next thing you know, Von Miller jumps on it and runs it back for a decent margin, and the Bills immediately score on the next drive. And at this point, it's starting to feel like, we got a problem brewing. It's like, can Lamar overcome this? And then he did. He overcame it. The next drive, he throws a 42-yard bomb to Rashad Bateman, and they end up getting 3 points. And so they're down by 4, I think. That's what the score was at the point in time. I can't fully remember. But either way, they get points. But then Buffalo, at the 2-minute drill, drives downfield, and Josh Allen runs it in for his second rushing touchdown of the night. Third quarter, though, was all Baltimore. They came out in the second half and absolutely dominated. They were running the game really well. The run game was going really well. Derrick Henry powered in for a touchdown. And early in the third quarter, the Ravens went for 2, did not get it, and it would end up being foreshadowing for the end of the game. But at the very least, they were still in this at this point. Going for 2, okay, I can see it. And then in the fourth quarter, it continued. The Ravens continued going, and then Mark Andrews makes a big catch in space, and before he can even really get running, he gets a couple steps, and as he gets going, here comes Terrell Bernard, bam, punches the ball out, it's on the ground, and next thing you know, I can't remember who recovered it, but it gets picked up, and that made 3 turnovers for Baltimore. The Bills immediately get a field goal drive, and Baltimore, eventually, with everything said and done, gets the ball with more than 2 minutes to go, and what does Lamar do? Just what he's done all year long. Drives down the field quickly, decisively, and then throws the touchdown to Isaiah Likely. The Ravens offensive line giving him so much time to throw. Finds him there. It was like a 1 minute and 13 seconds left, so I was kind of like, oh, did they score too soon? I was kind of worried about that. And then they had to go for the play. They had to go for 2 points to tie the game. Ball is snapped. Lamar rolls to his right, fires to Mark Andrews, and looking at it on the television, he had it in his hands, but then a small part, you could see it, a small speckle of that ball just popped up for a split second, and the next thing you know, Bills fans are cheering, and all you hear from Jim Nantz is, "It's dropped! It's dropped!" Mark Andrews dropped the pass. 2-point conversion right in his hands for the tie, and it was dropped. And oh my God, the season. I know the game already happened, but even right now, it's like the season couldn't end like that. It really couldn't. Are you kidding me? After everything Baltimore went through, the year that Lamar Jackson had, that's how their season ends? Seriously? It can't get any worse than that. Literally can't get any worse than that. The only way it could have been worse is if Lamar Jackson threw a terrible pick 6 or something. But no, it was a great throw by Lamar. It was right in the chest of Mark Andrews. He had it in his hands, but just last second just went and then it fell out. It literally just all of a sudden became like a hooked fish, and then just made a couple wiggles and then slipped out. Oh my gosh, that can't happen. That simply can't happen. What a sad moment for this game to end. And we'll get to Baltimore here at the end. But starting with Buffalo, Josh Allen finishes 16 of 22, 127 yards, add on 20 rushing yards off of 10 carries and 2 rushing touchdowns on the goal line. Not a bad day from Josh Allen. No turnovers, but this is not what I expected. I thought Josh Allen would play a lot better of a football game, but honestly, the run game, ultimately, run game was okay. James Cook, 17 for 67, not great, but Ty Johnson, 5 carries, 31 yards. Ray Davis had 29 yards and a touchdown. And receiving-wise, going back to that area, Khalil Shakir, the only guy that really did anything, 667 yards. But, 8 players caught a pass. So, that counts for something. But part of the reason why this offense didn't put up a lot of numbers was because of the turnovers. Because of the turnovers, and, they were able to thrive off a short field. The fumble by Lamar Jackson, bam, that was a touchdown drive. And then, they had a couple decent-sized returns, field goal, the Bills offense really did not have to drive down the field. Really drive down the field a lot in this game. They had a lot of good field position, which contributed to why there was not a lot of many yards. But it was an efficient day. It was a fine and efficient day. Nothing great. I expected more, but I can't I can't have my cake and eat it too sometimes. Sometimes you go and win the game and you don't, it's not how I envision it, but it's not like I can trash them for not, because it's like, well, I'm honestly, that would kind of make me a hypocrite because I just crashed the Eagles for their victory. Then, oh, wow, that's a little bit of a, I'm kind of glad I caught myself on that. Yeah, that would make me a hypocrite. But either way, it's still not what I expected. Regardless of what putting all that to the side for a minute, that is not what I expected. I expected more, but it was enough to win regardless. And then defensively, they played fine. And the turnovers were a boost. But honestly, this game kind of felt more like the Ravens just not executing when it really mattered, more than the Buffalo Bills, kind of just making big plays. Like the interception, it looked like it was a miscommunication between Lamar Jackson and the receiver running the route. Looked like he ran a different route, and bam, they got interception. And, obviously we won't know. No one will really ever know what happened on that play. Maybe it'll come out. Like if Baltimore Ravens fans, if there is something that came out about it, let me know in the comments. I want to hear about it. But, that's something that, that's probably just a miscommunication more than likely. And then the fumble, wasn't forced out. It didn't get popped out. It literally just Lamar Jackson had it in his hands and then it slipped out. It literally just fell out of his hands, and the Bills defender, Von Miller, came and grabbed it and ran it. And then obviously, and then the fourth, the fumble to Mark Andrews. The Bills defender did punch it out. That goes, I would, give credit for the Bills there. But then the 2-point conversion, literally had it in his hands for the tie and dropped it. Literally just dropped it. It gave majority of these bad plays for Baltimore, were kind of really self-inflicted, truly self-inflicted, and it gave Buffalo multiple breaks in this game. But getting into the Bills' keys, continued dominance in the run game was their first key I had for them to win. Not dominant, but they did have 147 yards on the ground, which is good, and I like the continuity here that they're committing to running the football. The second one, as I close my keyboard, getting more out of this passing game. They didn't. They really didn't. Baltimore's defense played these receivers very, very sticky, and it made it hard for them to throw down the field. And then the third one, contain Lamar Jackson. Yeah, they did. They didn't let him use his legs very often, limited his run opportunities, and that, played a big role in the Ravens offense not being able to move the ball downfield very much. And then, did they get too caught up in the moment? Nope. They were cool and collected just like they've been there before and took care of business. And now you go on the road to Kansas City, your arch nemesis. This game is going to be intense. It is going to be intense. It's going to go down to the wire. And now everyone, once again, is rooting for the team that is not Kansas City. So we'll have to see. And you guys will see my preview for the NFC Championship right after this one. And go ahead and check that out as soon as you're watching this video, because it is going to be an interesting game, and I will enjoy a lot talking about this game. Moving to Lamar to cap it off, he finishes 18-25, 254 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, had the interception, the fumble, add on 6 rushes for 39 yards. He didn't do enough in this game, but I'm going to defend Lamar for just a little bit, because everyone, the immediate, stuff coming out on social media now is Lamar Jackson chokes again. And you can say, yeah, the interception, bad. The fumble was really bad. But when it mattered, when the Ravens had to have it, when the Ravens absolutely had to have it, Lamar Jackson put them down and got them there for the tie. He did his job and got, regardless of anything that happened, when he needed to get down the field to go get a touchdown to go tie the game, he did that. He did that for Baltimore. And it really wasn't his fault that, the drop by Mark Andrews, that's not his fault. It was really a perfect throw right in his chest, falling right in, bam. Like, that's it, tie game. And now his defense has got to stop Josh Allen for a minute and a half. That's not his fault. And sure, the turnovers, it led to 7 points. The fumble led to 7 points, so sure. But when it ultimately mattered, Lamar did what he needed to do. Lamar Jackson in the past, after the first two turnovers, would have completely folded. He would have folded under pressure, and it would have just continued to fall apart. And you know what? It didn't. Lamar Jackson kept this team in it. Despite all of that, he's kept this team in it. And continuing on, problem was he didn't really get all that much help in the run game. Derrick Henry, 16 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. You can say what you want. The Ravens had like 170 yards on the ground, which is a great day, but the Ravens have a losing record. In the regular season, they had a losing record when they didn't give Derrick Henry the ball more than 20 times. That's not the formula. And sure, you look at the receiving stats, Isaiah Likely, 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 4 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, 5 catches, 61 yards. Right? Like, they got more out of this passing game, but in a way, they deviated from who they are as a football team. Part of the reason why they beat Pittsburgh so bad was because they're a running football team and they fully embraced it. And in this game, they did not, rely on the run game enough when they needed to. And I can only recall only a few, true drives in the game that were dominated by the run game of Baltimore. The rest of it was throwing it down the field. And that's just unfortunate. And while Lamar, when we talk about the keys here, for, the big, the fourth one, obviously, getting too caught up in the moment, I'll kind of jump the gun here for a second. Lamar Jackson, he stepped up to the occasion. When he made mistakes, he was able to atone for it. Mark Andrews didn't. The moment was too big for him, and I feel bad for him. And, it was all on him. I was going to say it's all on him. It's not all on him. But it's just unfortunate. I mean, after you have the fumble, here you go. We're going to put the ball in your hands to go get the 2-point conversion and tie the game, and he didn't execute. The moment was too big for him in this game. It's unfortunate. And all the people that on social media have sent him awful messages, those people, like, you need to go get a life. Like, go get a life. Like, don't, I get it. Like, your player, when your team and your player doesn't, succeed, and then I get it, you're angry, but there's literally no point in going out there and like start sending awful messages to the players. Like, that's not what you want to do. Times like these is where people need to really, times in tragedy or negative times, people just need to focus on coming together, but they'd rather go after each other and cause even more division. That's a problem with society in general, which is not a conversation for a football podcast, but it's still unfortunate. And for the Bills Mafia, I saw that they had donated over $10,000 to Mark Andrews charity, which, goes to show Bills Mafia is one of the best fan bases in the NFL. I mean, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. But Mark Andrews, I feel bad for him. I feel really, really bad for him, but can't have that drop, can't have the fumble. Unfortunate. Two circumstances for him. But continuing on, this defense, they played pretty well. They couldn't get pressure on Josh Allen, and he ran a lot, but they limited the big plays. They were good on third down, and they limited his passing game and really forced Buffalo to be a one-dimensional team. And, whether you like this or not, that's a formula that Kansas City is going to look at, and they're going to take inspiration from that. So, even though the Ravens defense didn't do enough, they played well. They played well to win. And I thought it was a performance that was good enough to win. But simply put, obviously, I'm not going to continue on it again, but the offense just simply didn't do enough. And going to their keys, continue to run dominance in the run game? No. They didn't get a bunch of long drives and dominate time of possession. They didn't give it to Derrick Henry enough. Like I said, they have a losing record in the regular season when Derrick Henry doesn't get 20-plus carries. There's a reason for that, because he is your offense. He is the engine. So you got to give him the ball more times than that. Sorry, you have to. I don't care that Justice Hill had 6 carries for 50 yards. I don't care that Lamar Jackson had 39 yards on the ground. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't give the ball enough to Derrick Henry, you don't win. That's not who the Baltimore Ravens are. Baltimore Ravens aren't a team that is supposed to be run and pass balanced. No, they are run heavy. That is who they are, and they deviated from who they are. And then I'm talking about getting more of this passing game. Yes, sacrifice the run game. I already talked about it enough. The third key, containing Josh Allen, they did well for most of the time. And I'd say that's a win. They did it for the most part. And then getting to in the fourth key, don't get too caught up in the moment. Nope. They got too caught up in the moment. And the 3 turnovers that Baltimore had on offense are what killed this game for them and pretty much ended any chance they had. Despite the fact that, they were right there. Got the 2-point conversion, missed it. But, you don't commit the fumble. That's a touchdown off the board. Baltimore wins. And that's not even happening. You get the 2-point conversion, right? You get the 2-point conversion that you missed earlier in the game, and this score is completely different. Baltimore wins. I mean, those 2 little mistakes cost them, and the moment just ended up being too big for them. And once again, the Ravens fall short. They fell short again. And I know the conversation on Lamar, it's going to be, the people are going to be bashing Lamar, right? They've already gone after Mark Andrews. People are already going after Lamar Jackson. But again, it's just their offense and their game plan isn't who they are. It simply isn't who they are. It was a bad game plan by this coaching staff, in my opinion. And call me crazy, Lamar Jackson's probably going to win MVP. But now, I mean, at least in the public eye, in the fans' eyes, he has lost his MVP. He's lost it. And me personally, throughout the year, I thought Josh Allen would be the winner. No, as the year had went on, and Josh Allen had a couple games there, and Lamar continued playing phenomenal. Lamar Jackson, honestly, probably deserves to win MVP this year. Honestly, in my opinion, like, it's changed on me. He's grown on me a lot, and I've always been a big fan of Lamar Jackson. But this year, like, Lamar Jackson truly has become one of my favorite players to watch in the entire NFL. The guy's awesome. The guy's absolutely awesome. But to see him, in that situation lose and again, he'll probably end up winning MVP. There's a stat, he was first team All-Pro, and the AP also picks the league MVP. So to see, usually when the quarterback that gets first team All-Pro ends up winning MVP, that's a good, little thing to go in Lamar's favor. But it's unfortunate because in the public eye, this is between 2 MVP candidates. The winner should win the MVP, and the public eye, he lost it. He lost the MVP. And at this point now, for Lamar, the clock is ticking. We talk about in clown Pittsburgh for their yearly playoff meltdowns and their playoff struggles. Baltimore is entering that department if people haven't put them there already. Because, I mean, this is another year of great regular season, great Lamar Jackson, and another just underwhelming performance in the playoffs. When they had to have it holistically from start to finish, they couldn't get it done. In the year that was just phenomenal, Lamar's greatest year ever, as a quarterback, gone. Just like that, it's all gone, and it's all for nothing. It literally just went all for nothing in that quickly. That moment, just wow. Like, it just, oh my gosh, so sad. It's such a sad way to see the Baltimore Ravens season end. And even though, like, obviously that from start to finish, I mean, there was an avenue that, Buffalo was going to win this game. I mean, a lot of people picked Buffalo to win this game, but I don't think anyone envisioned Baltimore's season to end in such a heartbreaking fashion. It's so sad. It's so sad. But for them, it's back to the drawing board. This team is still really good. They're going to be in the playoffs in 2025, and they'll have another opportunity to make it right. And I saw a thing on, on Colin Cowherd and talking about, the first 7 years of Lamar being in Baltimore and the first 3 years or 7 years of Manning being there. And their playoff records are almost exactly the same. Their passing numbers are almost exactly the same. And it's like, well, and to be fair, Lamar Jackson is in a great conference of quarterbacks. If the conference of quarterbacks is the AFC, infinitely over the NFC. So obviously at some point, I mean, Lamar's going to get his. I think he's going to win a Super Bowl at some point. But I guess you got to keep on waiting and just hope that, 2025 could be the year, and hopefully they just don't have another playoff meltdown like this one. But that being said, that is going to do it for me today, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought of these games and what you thought of my analysis of these games. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe, hitting those 2 buttons really quick, really easy to do. Helps the channel out tremendously and allows me to continue to share my football passion with even more people. And I appreciate it if you guys would do that. Of course, it's awesome. And of course, also make sure you guys share the video, whether it's on social media or spreading by word of mouth, making sure everybody gets locked in and locked on to the Shumake Take podcast, coming out with great content for you guys every week. Probably going to make a schedule change here going into next week after conference championship. Maybe not like a big schedule change. Probably like, as we get into the down, off season, whatnot. And we'll probably go down to like, one major podcast episode a week. And then, going into February, the predictions versus reality stuff will start coming out. We'll talk more about it next week after the conference championships. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.